80MAC produces 5,000 horsepower and 185,000 pounds of starting tractive effort. The best our most powerful DC locomotives can achieve is 108,000 pounds of tractive effort, and that's at 11 miles per hour. Below that speed, higher tractive effort is possible. However, the thermal limits or short time ratings of the DC traction motors and higher wheel slip potential limit the amount of TE you can actually apply. The SD80MAC's AC traction system, along with a very aggressive wheel creep system, allows it to achieve much higher adhesion levels than DC locomotives, 45% versus 27%. So, wheel slip indications seldom occur. And since the AC traction motors do not have any short time ratings, the 80MAC can provide that 185,000 pounds of tractive effort all day long. The sound and feel of the 80MAC's wheel creep system at work may take some getting used to. At low speeds under heavy load, the aggressiveness of this wheel slip system with its feel and sounds may cause you to want to notch back the throttle. But unless you're getting a wheel slip indication, don't. Let the locomotive do what it does best. Provide very high power at very low speeds. The 80MAC's dynamic brake is the most powerful of any locomotive available today. It can produce up to 96,000 pounds of braking force, 35% more than an SD60, right down to 1/2 mile per hour. Remember to be very careful with the dynamic brake at low speeds while in sharp curves and turnouts. Each SD80MAC is equivalent to 9 axles of extended range dynamic braking. Another operating characteristic that may require some adjustments is the way the 80MAC loads up. It loads slower than you might be used to with other EMD locomotives, and it displays its loading in tractive effort, not amps. Because of the slower loading, it is recommended that you advance the throttle to what you think you will need to start the train before you release the independent brake. It is not recommended that you jockey the throttle back and forth from idle to notch 1 to start the train. Just release the independent slowly with the throttle advanced to where you need it, and let the locomotive take the train out nice and easy. You must keep the slow loading characteristics in mind when starting a train on an uphill grade. Make sure you've advanced the throttle high enough to prevent the train from rolling back before you release the brakes. You may even need to use a notch or two more than you normally would with DC locomotives in this situation, because if the train begins to roll backward and gets up to 1.5 miles per hour or higher in the wrong direction, you'll lose the load and the locomotive's computer will command full dynamic brake until the train stops. Then you'll have to start all over again using a higher throttle setting. Here's another operating characteristic particular to AC locomotives. AC traction motors can't be plugged. If the reverser is moved to a direction opposite to the direction of travel, the locomotive's computer will command full dynamic braking until the reverser is moved out of the wrong position or the locomotive is stopped. The SD80MAC has been tested extensively at the AAR's test track at Pueblo, Colorado. Let's see what the AAR test engineer has to say about this locomotive.
My name is Mark Woodworth. I'm a locomotive engineer at the Transportation Technology Center, Pueblo, Colorado. I've been affiliated with MAC 80 locomotive since it arrived here in July of 1995, and been operating it with the EMD personnel doing the preliminary test work on this locomotive. Conrail people are going to be receiving these locomotives, and I'm excited about AC power. And this engine has a feature it's called wheel creep, and it's computer controlled. And if you're pulling a steep grade, you're going to feel wheel creep activate. You're going to feel the engine start to move and jump a little bit, and you're going to want to come off the throttle. I'll guarantee it, because I did when I first started running it. let the engine do its own thing. Since I've been running this engine for as long as I have a lot more confidence with this engine than I do with the DC unit because of all the capabilities that it has over a DC unit. One of the features that you're going to find that's really nice is the dynamic brake feature. You will keep full dynamic brake feature down to a half a mile an hour, which, as you know, in the past you didn't have that feature with DC units. Plus, even at a half a mile an hour, your dynamic brakes are just going to fade off slowly. The comfort cab on these units are a lot quieter. They've done a noise level test on them, and I can talk to you comfortably in throttle 8. I really like these cabs. They're a really nice feature. Just give yourself a little bit of time, get used to them a little bit, and I think that you'll really like them.
As you've seen, computers enhance every function of this locomotive, from controlling and monitoring the AC traction system and the diesel engine systems to controlling the operation of the air brakes. Troubleshooting any locomotive problem is also enhanced by the locomotive's computers. Most mechanical and electrical faults can now be handled right at the engineer's control stand using the computer displays. The locomotive's computers are capable of displaying over 1,000 different crew messages about locomotive conditions and faults. For some conditions or faults, the display provides information only. Other conditions or faults may provide the information with the option to reset the fault manually through the display keys, or the fault may be reset automatically by the computers. Locomotive operation may be unaffected. It may be automatically reduced or restricted, or it may be shut down. All the information you will need will be provided on the display, including what you may need to do to reset the fault manually. Let's take a look at a few crew messages. The crew message screen displays information on the fault in this area of the display. A menu of options is displayed in this area. A blue line extends to the button that activates that menu item. The light blue bar highlights the items that are active. Other menu choices can be made available by using the Shift key. In addition to providing high voltage ground protection, ground relay, the locomotive will protect electrical components during a fault by firing an electrical crowbar. Crowbar is a new term used to describe an action that removes power from the electrical components. This action is the same as with ground relays, something you're already familiar with. These are serious faults that require reporting. Just like with ground relay protection, the locomotive will reset most crowbars automatically. But if the locomotive fires 2 or more crowbars for the same fault in a short period of time, it will drop out locomotive loading and lock out the electrical system. In this case, the crowbar will have to be manually reset using the display. If the fault that caused the crowbar occurred with one of the 2 inverters, it may be necessary for you to cut out or disable the problem inverter. Let's take a look. When the fault occurs, the locomotive will immediately display it on the Setup menu display. As soon as it's safe to do so, the engineer can cut out or disable the inverter and reset the crowbar. With one inverter disabled, the locomotive will still produce about 55% of its power. Here's something that's very important to keep in mind. These locomotives produce a tremendous amount of pulling power. If a crowbar is fired under full load at low speed, the sudden removal of power can cause a pretty good jolt in the cab. The lower the speed, the more severe the jolt can be. So, for safety, at very low speeds under full load, it's a good idea for cab occupants to remain seated. If it is necessary to stand or move about the cab, make sure you maintain a secure handhold. Well, that's it. Here it comes. The safest, most comfortable, and most powerful locomotive available today. Just keep in mind some of those safety considerations and operating characteristics that we've talked about. And then handle this locomotive like you would any high horsepower locomotive. Now it's up to you to get the most out of the SD80MAC. Thanks for watching.